Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll keep letting people come in as they come through the lobby. I want to say welcome to everyone for joining us today. Heyman, I'm going to throw it over to you, and then we can get going. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As the title suggests, we're going to be talking today about why global virtual asset businesses are choosing the Cayman Islands. But before we get started, I think it'll be good to do some introductions. My name is Heyman Rankin. I am an associate director at Cayman Finance. And for anyone who doesn't know, Cayman Finance is a non-profit organization that is funded by the Cayman Islands government and members that are, operating within the financial services industry. So our role is very diverse. There's a lot of interests to juggle at any point in time. We can be helping to, change laws, drive policy, and advocating for different things that are effectively all meant to help boost the financial services economy. That is really what we do at Cayman Finance. We cover the entire industry from banking, accounting, lawyer, it's really the entire financial services industry. What I deal with in particular is the fintech and virtual asset space. And that is really my main focus. I'm going to pass it over to Isabel and Ken as well to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do.
Thanks, Heyman. My name is Isabel Ford. I head up the global mobility team here at Cayman Enterprise City. Essentially, what we do is assist founders to relocate to the island and establish a genuine physical office presence here, assisting with the preparation and filing to get you your business licenses, your work permits, and that workspace set up as well. I think I will, in a couple of slides, be going on to exactly what Cayman Enterprise City is and the special economic zones here in the Cayman Islands. So I'll save that for a little bit later.
I'm Kenneth Ng. I'm the Chief Legal Officer here at Ledden. We're a digital asset lender, primarily in the business of offering loans against Bitcoin collateral. We are regulated by CIMA, which is the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority here, as a VASP, which is a virtual asset service provider. We were originally founded as a company in Canada, and we relocated the company to Grand Cayman in 2023 now, with the help of Izzy's team at Cayman Enterprise City. So pleasure to be here today from sunny Grand Cayman.
Alrighty, thank you. And hi again, everybody. So Cayman Enterprise City, or CEC, what you might hear us referring to it as throughout today's webinar, is home to the Cayman Islands network of special economic zones, which were established under dedicated legislation called the Special Economic Zones Act of 2011. So the goal behind CEC has always been to make it easier and faster for international businesses to set up a real operational presence here in Cayman. So we work mainly with companies in technology, digital assets, fintech, media, science and technology, maritime and aviation, who really want to expand globally and also want a stable, well-regulated jurisdiction to operate from. But what sets us apart is that we're not just providing that, physical office space. We also offer a fully managed solution that helps companies handle everything from the business licensing, your work visas, and then the work space setup as well, all the way through to relocation support and community integration. So our clients can move from incorporation to operation in just a matter of weeks, which is one of the reasons that we've become a hub for innovative businesses looking for efficiency and stability. So today at CEC, we're home to more than 450 international companies representing over 70 nationalities. Within our campus, you'll find everyone from early stage startups to global firms working in, as I mentioned, blockchain, software development, digital finance, commodities, aviation, and so on. But what's really exciting is how collaborative the community has become. We host over 150 events a year. I think this year we're on track to hit 200. And these are from, industry talks to smaller member breakfasts and networking sessions, but all designed to connect founders and just build meaningful relationships across sectors. Another important part of all of this is that we help companies to meet their substance requirements by having that physical office set up. And then while also being part of a community that supports long-term success. So through partnerships with groups like Cayman Finance and CIVAS, businesses in our zones benefit from access to the wider Cayman ecosystem, including all the leading legal and financial service providers who can guide you as you grow. So in short, that was kind of long of it, but in short, CEC provides structure and support that allow businesses to focus on what they do best, like innovating, scaling, expanding globally, while we take care of the more operational side of, navigating the Cayman Islands. So yeah, with that, I'll hand back to you, Heyman, to lead us through today's discussion on why so many global virtual asset businesses are choosing Cayman, and how the jurisdiction continues to evolve as this kind of trusted global hub.
Absolutely. Thank you. So the big topic, why are global virtual asset businesses choosing the Cayman Islands? I have quite a bit of thoughts on this, but I think I'm going to pass it over to Ken because just as you said, only 2 years ago, Ledin moved to Cayman. So I'll be very interested from Ledin's perspective, if you can tell us, Ken, what was the thought process behind Ledin's decision to make that move to Cayman? Because obviously that's a big thing. And I know you and the management team very, very well. You guys are great. It's always a pleasure to do business with you and socialize and whatnot. But from what I know, you have a family. The CEO has a family. So why is it that you would make that big jump, not only uprooting the business, but also your families to travel all the way to the Cayman Islands?
Yeah, no, that's definitely an important way to think about it. I think, just zooming out, I think, as a business, you kind of look at it from like a hard requirement and like the soft requirements. And I think today maybe we'll talk about it in a backwards order. When I say hard requirements, I think when you're looking for a home for your business, first and foremost, it has to be a place where legally and from a regulatory perspective, it's the right place for your business, right? There's an appropriate regime, and it's a business, and then there's all kind of the infrastructure to support that business in that jurisdiction. So that's what I kind of call the hard requirements. That's kind of what you start with, right? Like, does Cayman have all of that, and do these other places have all of that? And then you typically have like a short list based on that first criteria. And then you look at the soft stuff, right? Is that where I want to live? If I have to come and, bring the management team down to provide substance, is the management team going to come down here? Are their families going to want to come down here? How are there direct flights to get here? That's what I mean by the soft stuff. So maybe we can start with that soft stuff first, because that's sometimes the more interesting stuff, right? I think the soft stuff for a company like Ledin that was considering its relocation from Canada was definitely proximity. I think we wanted a location that was close to North America, ideally in a close time zone, which Cayman definitely checks. Direct flight to North American cities. I can tell you that I can book a meeting in New York tomorrow afternoon, and I'm on the next flight out to New York. And Cayman has all of those, very convenient infrastructure set up. I think the other soft thing will be like just the general optics and jurisdictional familiarity. I think you speak to anybody who's in financial services in North America, or even globally for that matter of fact, it's been the global center for investment funds industry for decades, with established legal frameworks. Everyone's comfortable with what Cayman is, right? In fact, if you're a project or a company that's taken VC money, your VC probably has their funds set up here, right? And if you're an operating company that relies on partners, you know, all your partners can get comfortable that you're dealing with a Cayman company because everyone knows what it is. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, you know, to elaborate on that a little bit, you know, you speak of New York, there's direct flights to New York. You also spoke on Canada, there's direct flights to Canada. I do think that's a very good consideration, just the flexibility and ease of access to get to certain key jurisdictions. And in terms of the funds point, you're absolutely right, Ken. Cayman has over 30,000 funds that are domiciled here. You know, we are one of the largest jurisdictions in the world for housing funds. So when you think about these, you know, these facts in terms of the statistics of funds, and you dig a little bit deeper, we will see that, you know, there's reports that have been published last year from industry body AMA that basically says, you know, from the 30,000 funds, we did a sample survey, and out of that survey, you know, 47% of these funds have exposure to virtual assets, and it's just like mind-boggling when you hear numbers like that. Because in comparison, I remember I was in Barcelona at the European Blockchain Convention, and one of the chaps from the Germany Association, he was talking about their funds and what their exposure was to it, and it was nothing comparable to Cayman. My memory serves me correct. It was like under 3% or 0.003% or something like that. He was saying, you know. So when you hear all of these facts, I mean, surely that money is trickling into other business. And I think that really speaks a lot to the trusted environment that we have here, the fact that we have so many funds, the fact that businesses have been using the Cayman Islands for such a long time. And when you start to look at the virtual asset ecosystem, I think, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, but I think there's a natural flow of money that is gonna naturally happen, right? If you have all of these funds here, you know, there's 47% based on that sample size has exposure to virtual assets, and you have virtual asset companies here, VASP companies here, many of which have their own tokens. I think it's natural to see the correlation between those funds being domiciled here, having an appetite for virtual assets, and then actually investing that money in companies who are also based in Cayman that has VASP license or is a foundation company or whatnot. Would you agree with that, or is that something that you're seeing frequently? Or
Yeah, that definitely, and even on that lens, like, you know, you go to other industry events that are not virtual asset related, right? You know, there's a big, a very rapidly growing reinsurance industry here, or you go to one of these fund industry events, or everyone is familiar with digital assets because everyone has been forced to think about it, or at least have LP that talk about it, and so yeah, just I think that just goes to the point of like this whole island is generally familiar with digital assets, whereas, you know, you go to some other small Caribbean island, for example, you know, maybe you can get set up there pretty quickly, but I can tell you that you know, nobody knows anything about digital assets there, or very, very nascent, right?
Absolutely. It's funny because I had a conversation just yesterday. I'm in Colombia at the moment for the blockchain summit, LATAM, and you know, there's a couple big names here, and I was speaking to two individuals, a lawyer and an investment manager, and we started to talk, and he was like, you know, trying to pick my brain in terms of, well, why should I choose Cayman? And I gave him the spiel, and long and short of it was, he was like, yep, that's all the reasons, we're already there. And we just started laughing, and he kept on saying, you know, we're familiar with Cayman and we trust Cayman. That, I think those are two common themes that keep on coming up. And when you start to think of trust, right, I think there's a lot of things that come into play, and you touched on some of them in terms of these hard reasons, I think is what you said. The regulatory landscape is one, right? We're based on the common law system. People are familiar with that. And, that goes a long way, but that's just one point. It makes no sense to have great laws, but not good people that can operate within the regulatory framework. And I think, from what I'm seeing on the ground, people really not only trust our laws, they trust the service providers that are in Cayman to do the job. So I think my next question to you, Ken, would be based off of, your whole journey of moving to Cayman, can you share a little bit about your experience or Ledden's experience with dealing with Cayman service providers?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely what I was going to talk about next is kind of the big plus is there is no shortage of qualified professional advisors here, between lawyers, accountants, auditors, everything that's needed to stand up a business like ours, that's regulated. I can tell you that we have experience in other jurisdictions. We looked at even within this region. I'll throw a name out there that's gets thrown out a lot, like BVI, for example. Like just the amount of qualified professional advisors that you can get. I think Cayman stands out bar none. And again, it ties back to the fact that there has been a funds industry here for 2-3 decades, right? So it's brought in all that expertise. So getting set up, for example, we have a local auditor here, and you don't have to explain what your business is. They're already familiar, right? And I can tell you, coming from Canada, we used to have a Canadian auditor. One of the, we went through a lot of, processes with some of the big fours even. And it was like, you spend 6 months educating them on what the heck your business is, because there's just not that much familiarity. But, here, we talked to a few different auditors and they all knew the business, so it really does stand out. And I don't take that lightly, right? Because you're busy, I'm busy relocating the island. I need qualified help. I can't be like shopping around trying to find a lawyer who understands what this stuff is, which is the experience in some other jurisdictions. I can even say, we are working on a project. We have so Ledden has a regulated entity in Europe, VASP there as well, that's going through the MiCA process. And you'd be surprised, right? Even in a region like Europe, it's more difficult than you think. Finding very specialized boutique expertise that can help, right? And then just to touch back on your what you were talking about earlier about the legal framework. Again, as a global business, Ledden deals. We're headquartered here, but we're basically working with counterparties all over the world on the institutional side. And it matters, right? Like, when clients, when counterparties and partners know that they're signing a contract with a Cayman company, they're like, okay, we trust the Cayman legal system, right? That if something goes wrong, that there's a Cayman lawyer that can resolve a dispute, and if we have to go to Cayman court, it's not a kangaroo court, right? Whereas, you pick a small island that's a rock in the middle of an ocean somewhere else, like, you're not so sure. Like, what would happen if there was a dispute over that contract? So again, maybe that's just the lawyer in me, but I can tell you, having operated in here, it matters. Our counterparties care.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the support the government provides as well. You are one of the members that sit on the Cayman Finance Industry Advisory Board. The advisory board plays a very key role in helping drive initiatives and provide feedback to Cayman Finance and how we really approach promoting the virtual asset space, protecting the virtual asset space, and helping to ensure it grows and it's feasible to operate in. And one of the things that we've looked at over the past year and a half or so now is, for instance, the tokenization of funds. And you were there from the inception when we started to talk about it. And you fast forward, I think maybe 9 or 10 months, then all of a sudden there's changes happening to legislation. Can you just speak a little bit to what that process feels like, what that experience felt like to you in comparison to other jurisdictions?
Yeah, I think the overall, like the short answer is you can really feel that there is governmental and political support here for the digital asset industry. I think Cayman's always been known as a place that sees, that's nimble, sees a need in the marketplace, and goes after opportunities, and that's how they're seeing the digital asset space right now, right? We were both. Oh, you weren't there yesterday, but I was at a SEMA event yesterday where the premier spoke, and he was. And he directly addressed, the whole crowd, saying, there's this is a very high priority industry, right? Comparatively, again, not to knock on any other, places, but we've certainly worked with other regulators where you can feel that there's not that tone from the top, right? In fact, you can feel a lot of career risk when you talk to these regulators that are like, oh gosh, like I gotta. I really have no incentive to work with you, to get you regulated, to be malleable, to learn about your business, to get you, to bespoke some requirements for you. It can only go badly for me. I get nothing out of this, right? That would be an example, that where we've come across that. And it's just, there's no tone at the top, right? That there's no incentive to let these businesses through and get regulated.
Absolutely. So I'm just conscious of the time. We're getting close to the 45-minute mark. I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to pass it over to the chat to see if anyone on the call has questions. So my question is, do you have any regrets moving?
Personally, and from, I can speak personally and from the perspective of the business, I'm absolutely not. I mean, from the business's perspective, I think Cayman was the right, absolutely the right move for us. We're a type of business that's virtual. We're not brick and mortar selling loaves of bread or have a sales force on the ground running around. We're a very digital first business, so it's very easy for us to sell our product online globally. So Cayman is definitely the right hub for that type of business like ours. The regulator has been good to work with. Cayman was one. We haven't touched much on that, but for anyone who's interested in becoming regulated here, the VASP regime here under SEMA was one of the first in North America. So I say that because it's had time to mature, right? All regulatory regimes take time to mature and they learn. Regulators have to learn as well. So they're 5 years old now, and so it's been a very good regime to work with. And so I'll leave it at that. Personally, I have 2 young children. The selection of schools here is fantastic. The expat community here is fantastic. And a year and a half into my personal move with my family, no regrets at all. We love it here.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Okay, so let's just move over to the chat to see if there's any questions there. And I know we had some questions submitted beforehand. So what are the main advantages of establishing a digital asset business in the Cayman Islands compared to other jurisdictions?
I think the only thing maybe that that I don't know what we touched on was when you are dealing with a digital asset business, obviously AML from a regulatory perspective, AML regulations is quite an important piece to consider. And some of you may know that Cayman was removed from the FATF Grey List some years back. Whereas again, I think a jurisdiction like BVI is actually still on it or was put back onto it. From an operating perspective, it's actually a huge difference because being in a jurisdiction that's on the Grey List creates an entire new set of red tape on your business. Everyone else who you face, whether it's your bank or other partners that you work with, have to diligence you in a very, very different way. So something small like that really matters for an operating business like ours.
Absolutely. Okay, so is there anything on here that has not been answered? How does Cayman balance strong? Yeah, no, I think we've covered it. Is there any other questions that anyone on the call has that they want to submit? Okay, so here's one. So Thank you for that, Bianca. What is the difference between setting up in the special economic zone compared to the local economy? I think this would be a good one for you to answer, Izzy.
Yeah, of course, happy to jump in. Thanks for your question, Bianca. So as I mentioned earlier, CEC makes it easier and faster, and that's thanks to the Special Economic Zones Act of 2011, which underpins the special concessions that are granted to the members of Cayman Enterprise City. So what makes it easier and faster is that, well, first, the speed to set up. We say it takes around 4 to 6 weeks, right? And a lot of that time really is the gathering of your KYC, all of the due diligence that needs to be collected. When we actually have the business license ready for submission, that takes around 7 to 10 business days for approval by our regulator, which is known as the Special Economic Zone Authority. Once that's approved, we can then submit for any work permits that are required, which take about 5 to 7 business days for approval. So, within 3 weeks, you can have your company up and running with us. Compared to the regular economy, I believe that takes a few months at least. The other is that we are also granted a special concession by the government to have reduced work permit fees. So we're about a 40% reduction in cost compared to the regular economy. So particularly for early stage startups, that can be a huge consideration in establishing a presence on the island. So yeah, I would say that those are probably the two main factors. I can dig into those in more depth and add a few others if anybody's interested in discussing it further. But those would probably be the two biggest comparisons to the regular economy.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. I'm gonna bring the call to an end now, because I'm just conscious of the time. But before I do go, I want to say, for anyone on the call who is not aware, we are hosting Cayman Crypto Week in February next year, and it will be a very good opportunity to visit the island and get to meet a bunch of service providers and see what Cayman is really all about. So if you're interested, please do, go on the website. Just Google search Cayman Crypto Week and you'll find a lot more details there. But that's it for me. I'll pass it back to Izzy and Ken if you guys have any final closing remarks.
Just thank you everybody for your time today. If anybody is interested in exploring the Cayman Islands and wants some further information, if you have any questions that weren't answered today, feel free to reach out to me directly. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to jump on a call and discuss things.
Yeah, likewise. It was a pleasure to be here today. And if anyone has any follow-up questions or kind of want to pick my brain about our experience here and getting set up, feel free to find me on LinkedIn as well.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this call. I'm wishing you a very pleasant rest of your day, and we'll see you when we see you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye now.